Hi guys, welcome to my channel. If you find it interesting, please subscribe it and like the video. This will help to support my project. And we are starting a new adventure. Do you know this song? I'm sure you do. Very soon it will be heard in all countries of the world. But did you know that the roots of this melody come from Ukraine? Carol of the Bells is the most famous Christmas song in the world, although the original has nothing to do with Christmas. In Ukrainian, this song calls Shedrivka. We can translate it into English like the gift giving. And in fact, this phrase, the gift giving, refers us to the times of the Kievan Rus, when the new year was celebrated at the beginning of spring. This is why the original text mentions the swallows. Although in winter these birds fly away for all winter periods. In the English version of the song, there are no longer swallows but bells. With the postponement of the New Year celebration to the winter period, Carol began to be sung in January, a week after Christmas. The modern Shedrivka, as we know it, is an arrangement by the Ukrainian composer Mykola Leontovich. The composer started creating the future Christmas hit in 1910, and 6 years later, in August 1916, he sent the manuscript of Shedrivka to the famous Kiev conductor Alexander Koshets. In several months, the song was first performed in Kiev. It happened on December 29, 1916, during a Christmas concert in the hall of the Mechanist Assembly, now the National Philharmonic of Ukraine. Shedrivka was performed by the students' hall of St. Volodymyr University of Kiev, under the direction of Alexander Koshets. The conductor recalled that the performance was very successful and the song was immediately admired by the audience. However, how did Shedrivka get abroad? In February 1917, a revolution took place in the Russian Empire, which at that time included Ukrainian lands. The Russian Tsar Nicholas II abdicated, and the nations enslaved by the empire began to fight for their independence. Finland was the first to declare independence in December 1917. Then on January 22, 1918, the Ukrainian Republic declared its state independence. They followed by the Baltic states and Poland. In October 1917, the Bolsheviks seized power in Moscow. They launched hybrid wars against the states formed on the territory of the former Russian Empire. Ukraine turns to the West for help. Germany and Austria-Hungary were the first to recognize Ukrainian independence, and they provided military assistance to the Ukrainian government in the fight against the Bolsheviks. But the main word was given to the Entente, the union of the victorious countries of the First World War: France, Great Britain, USA. It is necessary to open Ukraine to the world through culture, decided the head of the Ukrainian state and commander-in-chief of the army of the Ukrainian Republic, Simon Petlura, and he sends the whole to the west. Simon Petlura was well versed in culture, because before becoming a politician, he worked as an editor and journalist for 20 years. And Simon Petlura loved concerts. On one of them, he heard Mykola Leontovich's song. First, the whole had to go to Paris. In that time, there was planned a Paris Peace Conference, the largest diplomatic congress in Europe that time, with the leaders of the victorious states of the First World War were going to draw a map of the post-war world. The premiere performance of Alexander Koshets' Hor took place on May 11, 1919 in Prague, 3 months after leaving Kiev. And all this because it was quite difficult to travel that time. Martial law was declared in Ukraine, the railways were destroyed, the ministers were evacuated, it wasn't so easy to get the funds promised by the government. So the singers had to cover almost 1,000 kilometers to the western border almost on foot. But despite this, the premiere was a great success for the Ukrainians. On this day, Shedrivka by Leontovich was performed abroad for the first time. After the tour in Czechoslovakia, the choir was moved to Austria and Switzerland. 9 months after leaving Kyiv on November 3, 1919, the Ukrainian singers finally arrived in Paris. In November 1919, when his Shedrivka broke the ovation of the French public, the composer Leontovich, who all this time stayed in Kyiv, was forced to leave the city. Kyiv was already occupied by the Bolsheviks. And the singers continued their tour. After the tour in France, the whole performed with a great success in Belgium, the Netherlands, Great Britain, Germany, Poland and Spain. Some of the singers even reached Africa, Algeria and Tunisia. During 2 years of European tours, Alexander Koshet's choir performed in 45 cities of 10 Western European countries as a cultural ambassador of Ukraine. During this time, about 600 reviews about Ukraine and Ukrainian culture appeared in foreign press. The Shedrivka has been translated into English, French, German, Polish, Czech, Flemish and Spanish. The song became the voice of the Ukrainian people in the struggle for the independence. In January 1921, Alexander Koshet's choir arrived to Paris again, and in January 23 of the same year, they gave the morning concert at the Champs-Élysées Theatre. In the same day, Leontovich was killed by Bolsheviks. In September 1922, the choir of Alexander Koshet left Europe forever and moved to USA. In a few months, Bolsheviks announced the creation of a new Russian empire, the USSR. That's how Shedrivka gets to the American continent after the murder of the author of this work and the Russian occupation of Ukraine. Ukraine was no longer on the political map of the world. The Ukrainian government could not support overseas tours of Alexander Koshet's choir. The famous American impresario Max Rabinov organized tours for Ukrainian chorists in the USA. On September 26, 1922, Ukrainian singers arrived in New York on the large transatlantic ship Koronia and immediately plunged into tours life. For a whole week, they recorded the best songs from their repertoire on records of the Brunswick Records Company, including Shedrivka. And although the studio recorded only around 20 selected chorists, this audio recording of Leontovich's song is a unique testimony of the first performance in the USA, the future Carol of the Bells. Finally, the day of the premiere arrives. It happened on October 5, 1922 in the concert hall of New York Carnegie Hall. That day, the Leontovich song was heard the first time in the American continent, and it also was a great success. But the impresario Max Rabinov was a native of the former Russian Empire. He brought Anna Pavlova's Russian ballet to the United States, and he was closer to the idea of greater Russian culture than the project of an independent Ukraine. So he introduced two Russian singers into the Ukrainian choir. In the break between the Ukrainian songs, they performed the works of Russian composers. Because of this infusion, the American press began to call all Ukrainian singers Russians, and Ukraine Little Russia. During 1923-1924, the Ukrainian choir performed in 115 cities of 36 US states, as well as in Brazil, Canada, Mexico, Argentina, Uruguay, and Cuba. Chorists even reached the island states of Trinidad and Tobago. They gained fame and recognition for Ukrainian culture everywhere. Ukrainian concerts were attended by presidents and ministers, famous composers and conductors. More than 2,000 reviews of the Ukrainian culture appeared in the overseas press, and the number of Ukrainian music fans started to grow up. 40,000 listeners gathered at one of the performances in Mexico City alone. From the second half of the 1920s, the famous Ukrainian song began its own life, now already in America. Finally, in 1933, the first English-language version of Ukrainian Shedrivka appeared. However, it wasn't yet Carol of the Bells, but The Bluebirds, written by Max Krom, an American conductor and composer. At that time, he was a director of the conservatory in Indianapolis. He was the first in the USA who made an adapted translation of Shedrivka into English. The song is also about birds that bring joy in spring. In 1936, Carol of the Bells finally appeared. The exact English-language version of Ukrainian Shedrivka that whole world sings today for Christmas. The author of this English-language text was the American conductor Peter Wilhowski. After 1936, the song gets a new lease of life and once again gains the world popularity. It is performed by the most famous chorus of America and around the world. There are orchestral versions of the song, rock performance, jazz standards, electro, techno, disco, metal. Today, there are thousands of the most diverse arrangements of Ukrainian Shedrivka. So, this was the history of the most famous Christmas song in the world. And that's all for today. I thank you for your attention. Please subscribe to my channel and like the video. And see you in new videos. Bye bye.